Aloha. Today I wanted to do a quick video and give some more proof of the artificial intelligence grid that is our artificial reality that we call reality, such as the mainstream media, the university system, the NASA program, the CERN stuff, the transhumanism agenda, the sideways perspectives of stuff like the Mandela effect, the colonial program, the not understanding of history at all. Like, a lot of people can't even go into finding out where they originate. Like, that's another thing that keeps you away from understanding. You can't move forward unless you know where you've been. You can't grow fruit and flowers on a tree unless you have planted your roots in a deep understanding of truth and just realness, like what actually happened, the post-Columbian era civilization mentality, the post-slavery mentality. This is why they're trying to remove slavery from the history books. This is why they constantly put slavery in the television shows. They remove it from the history books so you don't count it as like reality, and they put it in the television and don't see how fucked up things are from the so-called people who are in control or in power. And then in the actual history books, they remove it so it's only exists on a fairy tale version, on a Hollywood version, and it desensitizes you. That's what all these terrorist things are. This whole thing is a desensitization program. Everything around you is a desensitization program, including Hollywood, public education system, in order to get you locked into a totally limbo space so you can be told how to think, told how to dress, told how to interact, told how to love, told what nature is, told what your relationship to nature is, told what human nature is, told everything about your reality is handed down to you by an artificial understandings of every single angle, period, end of story. And within that space is the distraction grid that we constantly are a part of when we engage in politics, when we engage in, there's that sphere again, like in the last videos I was talking about, when we constantly engage and continue to believe that this shit is real, that this shit is for our benefit, they have absolutely zero, the so-called they have absolutely zero empathy and compassion for the masses. They see us as chattel, as animals, as less than animals. We are dirt to them. This is why they keep us in. I was thinking even further, if we as human beings, as a human consciousness, have been, just as there's a difference between the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom, there is a human kingdom, or just not like king as in patriarchal perspective, king and all that shit, but just energetically the balances of the universal, the crown, that's what I mean by kingdom, the crown of the plant kingdom, the crown consciousness of the animal kingdom, the crown consciousness of the human consciousness, the tapping into the harmonics. Like, birds they've gone into a perfect harmony with their surroundings where they just sing. Like, there's so many different versions of birds here in this animal kingdom here on the earth plane that they possess so much beauty. Their harmonics, they're directly in tune with nature itself, and there's a nice balance there that is beyond even our interpretation. No words can really explain it. We can just hear it. It's like seeing art. It's a musical piece of existence which is why we are, or how I'm seeing why it's so important for the whole meat eating agenda to be pushed, like I mentioned in the last video, is because we are literally downloading that energy, becoming more like the animalistic energies that we are consuming, not to mention the direct emotional energy that's being passed on to us. But if we exist in a space of potential that includes the crown of human consciousness, then, and we constantly engage in filling our human consciousness vessels with an animalistic version of energetic reality, then we are literally degrading and desensitizing, degrading, and descending instead of ascending. We're descending our potentials by engaging in such a thing. That's how I was feeling when my body was consuming on a regular basis. Like, this is why people feel like get stomach problems all the time. This is why there's so much cancer with the meat eating industry. This is why there's so much cancer and sugar and stuff. Like, all these fats and sugars and meats and all this stuff is to keep you from getting to those harmonic spaces that the birds have gotten into in the animal crown consciousness space. The only way that a human consciousness can be controlled is if it is downgraded into an animal consciousness. This is why they push the evolution theory. This is why they tell you you're monkeys. This is why the university system is focused on only that kind of stuff. This is why the defense mechanism for the whole meat eating industry is for it's just is saying, oh yeah, we're just like animals. Like, look at our teeth. Look at this. Look at they eat meat. We eat meat. Like, it's about survival. Like, we have to, we are the top of the food chain. It's more complicated than that basic ass shit. So they ain't got nothing to do with just food chain stuff. That's just part of the whole program here. There's something beyond that. There's something more that we are not allowing ourselves to look into on a deeper scale, because it's not the norm, it's not mainstream, and it's also part of us being caught up in this chattelistic control grid. So we have all of these various distractions in our reality that are a part of the overall human conscious dissension program that we get caught up in, and technology is out there to play the good guy and the bad guy in order to be the victor in the future. Or they have a whole bunch of good guys and they have a whole bunch of bad guys, but ultimately there is going to be the agenda that is being pushed within all those distractions will continue to go on as long as we keep paying our energy and attention and focus into the movie reel as a whole. And this is why I'm showing this right now, is because movies, just like television shows, are not about the show at all. Television shows are about the commercials. They are about the commercials. That is your subconscious programming. That is your subliminal programming. They make money, just like baseball games make more money off the concession stands than they do off of the tickets. So TV shows make more money off of the commercials than they do off of the television show. And movies get more psychological programming from the commercials than they do from the actual movie. So the purpose of this, when you're talking about energy, when you're talking about psychological programming and control grids as a whole, I was just looking at these commercials. Are how many times before you see a movie do you see a commercial? And it's not about, getting you to go see the movie. It's about getting you to already have understood a limited understanding, a limited perspective of what the movie is. So when they have all these X-Men Apocalypse commercials out there, that actually sends more of a energetic shockwave into the human consciousness just by seeing that the movie exists. First of all, the storyline exists along with all the other storylines that are out there. Independence Day, Alien stuff, all this shit. You don't have to see the movie in order to get the control grid program. You don't have to see the movie. You are actually being programmed by the commercials, especially when they have these actors doing these interviews on late night talk shows, and they get on there and do these commercials, and they take these clips. That's a code in itself. This is a fucking magic spell. This gets into your child's mind. This is setting the program, like you, even on cartoon networks or whatever, they have movie commercials. This is what it's all about. It's all about the commercials. It's they got these commercials for the kids movies. That just makes it all real. It makes it all okay. And you got the same actors that are in these apocalypse movies that are in the voices of your cartoons. And it's just an ongoing psychological program that gets downloaded from the youngest child who's set up in front of a television to the oldest individual who is still locked into the mainstream grid. It's just a constant bombardment of separation and distraction and locking you into an artificial intelligence grid, an artificial and animalistic behavior, a lower chakra triggering grid on a regular basis. You got the savior mentality, you got the sexual programs, you got the beating down of the divine feminine, you got the amping up of the white supremacy program, you have the evolution programs, you got the Big Bang programs, you got the space program agenda, you got the transhumanism agendas, technology, you got all of these things that are in here. It's a constant bombardment, and a lot of people who are still locked into the grid deeply, who are still locked into the colonial program, still have a problem of seeing where so-called white people come from. I talk about this a lot because it is very fucking important to understand who you are. You have to understand who and what you are. It is not as simple as just human. You weren't just shot out of a vagina and just to be labeled human and go about your day. There's a harmonics to actual Indian people in India. There's a harmonics to Native Americans. There's a harmonics to Mexican people. There's a harmonics to Brazilian people. These are tones. This is music. There's a harmonic to all the different versions of Africans. There's a harmonic to all the different versions of Asians. People need to understand. And the biggest problem that I'm seeing on a regular basis is so-called white people have a problem with going into the depths of this because they are not put in the history books of seeing where they so-called originate or where their storyline starts. It only starts in the history books on the Columbian era. This is where the New Age agenda starts on, as far as setting the platform for apathy, for non-compassion, for a lack of empathy. When you don't know how deep this story goes, you will be subject to a surface layer story that is being sold as a part of another control grid, and it is also a part of the points that are all connected to the fact that if we don't know how deep this story goes, then we are more a part of the problem than a part of the solution. It is very important to trace these colonial programs to as deep as they can go in order to understand how to undo the shit that has been weighed down on the human consciousness as a whole, and the shit that's going to be continued to sold as part of our next agenda. There is a reason why there is a supremacy program right there, right now. If you can see that everything that is being sold to us is upside down and backwards, you have to understand if there are these agendas, if there is something like a supremacy program existing, you have to research and understand why. Not guess and get this simple, basic ass answer like we are all the same, we are all one. That's just the commercial fucking version of what is going on here. And that's the mentality this colonial grid needs for people to continue to just accept what the colonial program puts out there, which is actually the control grid as a whole. We have to understand truly what is going on here, truly how all this shit started, what the psychology of these agendas mean, what the psychology of all this stuff is. If we continue to stay in the reactionary grid of just adjusting to whatever the cabal or the governments or the new age agendas, technology, and all this shit puts out in front of us, if we continue only to focus on that, we will be within that program instead of understanding the natural, organic programs that exist within all of us. So that's what I pretty much wanted to get out there, is just I wanted to share, like, you can see these programs in these movies, and it's not about the movies. The movies are just there to have an excuse to bombard you with commercials. That's why movies exist. If we see it upside down and backwards, the way it actually is when you're talking about psychological programming. The movies are only seen by a minority of people when you understand that the commercials are seen by pretty much everybody. Anything that they hand out for free is going to be a psychological program. It is not for your benefit. It is for you to be constantly flicker rated into this whatever kind of program that they're selling to you. And you can see this is Fox News, 20th Century Fox United Kingdom. You can see, like, it's hard to jump completely out of the colonial program in order to see how we are being programmed, and to see that these agendas actually exist. The supremacy program is real. The eugenics program is real. The transhumanism agenda is real. The new age program agenda is real. You can see it in every single angle. What are you seeing in every one of these? This is a code here. Every one of these commercials is telling you something, and the whole story is telling you something else. This is why you don't see any of the positive stuff that's going on in Africa. You don't see any of the positive stuff anywhere. You are constantly bombarded by shit, by garbage. The news, the local news, is full of just negative stuff that's going on. If they had a positive news out there, just see, okay, the local news is only the local news because they want you to think, on a fucked up version of your reality so that you can have a savior like the police and the government and all that other stuff. But think about it for a second. They could actually make a news station, a local news and a national news, that is focused only on the positive stuff that's going on, like inventions, like child prodigies, people or community service stuff, people that are doing things that are in harmonics with reality, as opposed to and outside of the control grid, as opposed to all the garbage that's being put in there. That's just one version of like so many other things that could be focused on, so many other energies. This is all energy. So when you see this as energy and focus and programming, what is the child mind seeing when they see the way these programs, these faces, these people, these stories, what is being programmed right now when it's just ridiculous. It's a constant bombardment from every angle. This is the supremacy program. This is the colonial grid. The movies are not about the movie itself and the storyline itself. That is the long-term version. The short-term version of the program is the commercial. That is what's free. That's what's being sold to us on a regular basis. And that's the intent here. You can see this. This is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It is. It's sick. It's really sick. And this is why it's so difficult for people to actually start to look into why things are the way they are, is because the so-called reality that is around us, the artificial reality that's around us on a regular basis, is so real because these movies make it real. The university system makes it real. The science community makes it real. The television shows make it real. Your teachers make it real. Your people that you look up to, whoever it is, they make it real by constantly focusing on from within the program, from a reactionary space, instead of outside of the system, understanding what it means to be empowered, not distracted, understanding of the true depths. Look at this shit. This is Exodus, Gods and Kings. This is about Egypt, which some people continue to fucking forget is Africa. Look at who they say is Egyptian. You can't tell the period, even to the tip. Look at this shit. This is a psychological program of the highest order. The highest order. The control grid. Look at the White House. Look at your senators. Look at your politicians. Some people have difficulty or problems with me talking about race or anything. If you don't talk about something, then you will never understand it. If you don't speak on issues, you won't know where it originates and what it's connected to in this moment, in your own personality, in your own raising of your children, in your own relationships. We won't know how that stuff connects. And until somebody speaks on it, that's when it will start to be unraveled and start to trigger people looking further into it. So if I gotta be that guy to do that, then I'm gonna be that guy, because this shit is fucking important. I don't want my kids growing up being stuck in a psychological I don't want anybody's kids to have to grow up in a colonial grid. I already went through the fucking public education system. I already went through the manipulation of the child mind that makes kids want to join the military, that makes kids want to be a part of that fucking program. That is fucked up. They are programming individuals to, once they graduate, and not to mention the whole economical program of the middle class and the lower class system, which pretty much gives everybody in that space no options, to where they just have to sign a contract of their life away to this control grid as a whole. So when I go and see further after leaving that program to see that this is definitely connected to a supremacy program, that is connected to a control grid, that is connected to everything on this earth plane as a whole, even how we understand our the earth in itself, consciousness as a whole. Yes, this is something that is important, that needs to be spoken on. Yes, if we do not speak on this stuff, then we're just going to be talking about surface layer shit. Period. End of story. That's it. You have to go into understanding where the so-called white people came from, where these stories originate, why this is created this way. Why? Go into the depths of why. See where indigenous people, the Aboriginal Australians, originate in Australia. You have American. This is why the United States refers to itself as America all the time, and totally negates South America, totally negates Mexico, totally negates all of Central America, and just says, look, we are the superpower, energetic power of this earth plane known as America. No, you are only the tiny United States, which is actually a corporation that is in between the Americas. And even that storyline is full of shit, knowing that you came and genocided the entire Native American population and flipped upside down and backwards the stories of the Native Americans, including the tribes, the Native American tribes, and the black races that were already up and down the Americas, already here before Columbus. These are the stories that need to be told. Every single so-called white individual that is over here right now immigrated, their family immigrated over here. Now, when they immigrated over here, where did they come from? Like, where did they originate? Africans come from Africa. If you don't understand where you're rooted, where you come from, where your story begins, you won't know what story is going on right now and where your story is going. So people who have an issue still with people, me speaking on where race fits in this whole thing, then that's a personal problem. Ain't got nothing to do with me. That's your own thing. And it needs to be addressed individually. Each person needs to understand, because everybody's mixed up in some kind of way, to where their storyline isn't just a simple thing. It's deeper than what we are told this commercial version of our human reality is. That human story is just, it's not as simple as that. That's just the TV version that the New Age agenda wants to sell, so they can continue pumping out this monkey evolution, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, monkey evolution program, so you can be sold into the transhumanism program. This is what these movies are all about. This is what this dissension program is all about. They're locking you into an artificial reality, an artificial grid, scaring the shit out of you in order to get you locked into a lower vibrating survival, fight or flight mentality, so that the savior of the government or the United Nations or your politicians can come and create everything for you. They're making themselves into artificial gods. And as long as they continue to bombard you with the understanding that this stuff is real in some kind of sense, or it matters to you in some kind of sense, then you fill in the blanks of your subconscious with your conscious reality of watching the X-Men Apocalypse movies, or X-Men Days of Future Past, or Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, or any of the Independence Day stuff. These are your conscious fillers for your subconscious programming of the commercials, of the education system, of all the stuff that you get bombarded with, from the lower chakras, the sexual programming, the beating down of the divine feminine, the beating down of the divine masculine, and the watering down of the human crown as a whole. That's fucked up. And this is our reality. So yes, I will continue to speak on the importance of understanding what the harmonics are within the human race storyline, as long as it continues to be referenced as not an issue by certain individuals because of how important it is. It is not a secondary thing. It is not a little thing. It is something we have to understand in order to get outside of the level of consciousness that is creating the control grid as a whole. The colonial program is based on very limited, it's a limiting frequency. So there are foundations there. There are things that are obviously connected to certain agendas and certain mindsets. And when you start to disassemble them, there are some things that are very, very, very important to go into the roots and into the soil that those roots are in order to understand how to exist in a space outside of the program that is being sold as our history, as our present, and our future. So that's basically all I wanted to share. Just kind of give you an example, proofs and examples of these commercials are the free stuff. This is the stuff that's free. Once you see the movie in a commercial version, that's it. That's all they really want. That's all they wanted you to do. Look at this, Walking with Dinosaurs, 3D movie. All this shit. Evolution program, dinosaur program, NASA program, supremacy programs. It comes down in these movies, and these actors make these so-called human actors make it real for you because you believe in them. They break this fourth wall, and then they look into your eyes, and then they go on to these television shows, and you like them. They're sweet. They're this. They're that. But you don't. You're being deterred from seeing the depths of the storyline. The depths of why there are so many slave movies, black slave movies on the television on a regular basis. Why you never know, you never hear about the Caucasus Mountains and the Caucasian peoples. You never hear about the origins of Europe and black Europe. You never hear about that stuff. You never hear about all these storylines that existed before the Columbian era. You never hear about pre so-called royalty, British royalty, the Great Britain, like all that shit. That is a psychological program. These accents that get on these documentaries and tell you what your history is about, tell you what your future is about, tell you about, like, just saw the dude who plays Spock in the new Star Trek on the Colbert show just last night or something, and they were talking about how Star Trek is like the future of like a perfected humanity. It's the future of what humanity would be like if it was just perfect. That's actually what triggered this video. This is like how they program you. And then they have one of the actors in there who died because his car ran him over or some shit, like in his house. And they anchor it in with emotion. They anchor this shit in. This fucked up. They used like the death of one of the actors to sell an agenda. Star Trek, NASA, psychological programming into the transhumanism control grid program. This is what this stuff is all about. And they have zero empathy. It is powered by separation. This is what the artificial program is all about. It is powered on lower vibrating energies. And when they install that stuff into your consciousness, then you subconsciously power the grid as a whole by believing in it and by sending that energy and that information on down the line to generations, to your kids, and so on. This is what these stories are all about. This is a program. So that's pretty much all I wanted to share with this video, because it's just obvious and I wanted to emphasize it. So thank you for joining me, and yeah, please go deeper into the understandings of who and what you are. It's not as simple as just we are humans. That is the commercial version that the control grid wants. It's simple, it's basic. But it's not it. They can control a basic program, but when people get complex in understanding the truth of the harmonics of who and what we are, then that's uncontrollable. So we can either be locked into that program that's being sold next, or we can do the dirty work and really start to understand how much we are actually setting the foundation for this program, and we have to understand like what's really going on here, like why this stuff is the way it is. And it has to be just as much as it's people coming together and talking about stuff, it's equally individual, because it's really about you and your kids. It's the generations as a whole. So that's basically it. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.